What is good, everybody, man? Welcome into the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central, man. Myself, my guy, Coach Fred. We took a little bit of a break. Got to go on vacation, got to go down and kick it with, I believe, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a little bit, man. Coach, you've been all over. You've been back and forth to Mississippi, to Florida, driving all over the country, man. Coach, how we feeling?
Man, missing the beach, but work calls, time to get back to it. Get ready for this off season workouts and build back to it, man. Season's right around the corner before you know it, to be here.
Man, we missed we missed so much on our little
My bad.
break. It's like no, because I mean we were
My bad.
rolling, man. That like we were putting 3-4 shows out a week, and I was like, you know what, I think we'll be fine, man. Like I think everything could go on pause for like a week. We lied. The world lied to
Yeah.
me because I mean we
It didn't
missed.
stop.
Yeah, we missed the debate about SWAC tiers. We missed the Celebration Bowl going insane. I mean, we've missed TV schedules being dropped. Coach, we missed so much, man. So we're gonna try to catch up on it all on this episode. Listen, guys, we made a call right before the show, man. Coach, just running around putting in that work today on campus. So we're gonna move our best returning quarterbacks in each FCS conference to our next show, which might either come this weekend or early next week, man. So stay tuned for that next week. I'll edit the thumbnail, all that stuff later, man. But coach, I want to start here because this has dominated social media, since it's been announced. ESPN has decided to move the Celebration Bowl up a week. December 14th is the new date. Historically, it's been played on the third Saturday in December. And coach, I mean, the amount of takes that we have seen across the country has been insane, from the MEAC, calling out the SWAC, and the SWAC calling out ESPN, and reporters calling out ESPN, people talking about breaks, people talking about canceling and moving the Bayou Classic, the Turkey Day Classic. Coach, it even got so outrageous. There were people calling out the Florida Classic, which isn't even a problem in the ultimate grand scheme of things because it's played in the regular season. So I don't know how the Florida Classic even got involved in the argument. But coach, people did not react. They didn't react logically to this news. But let me ask you, when you first heard the news of ESPN moving the Celebration Bowl up a week, which back to its spot as the first bowl game of bowl season, which it was originally supposed to be anyway, what was your first reaction to someone who has played in multiple Celebration Bowls or coached in multiple Celebration Bowls?
My first reaction was, what took it so long to be announced? Because you had to know once the playoff schedule changed and they extended the playoffs that this was going to happen. Now, I thought that the venue would change, but I also had in the back of my mind that the date would change as well, just because Atlanta, not only the SEC championship, not only the Celebration Bowl, Chick fil A, Peach Bowl, it houses a lot of college football events. So I knew at some point in time it would be tested, rather moved or move venues or whatever. I just wondered what took so long, because the minute that it was announced that the college football playoffs were expanding, I knew one location was going to be Atlanta. And if you didn't think one of those playoff spots was going to be Atlanta, you haven't been watching the landscape of things.
And on top of that, if I'm not mistaken, the Georgia State Championships are hosted in the Dome as well,
Right. Yep.
for high school. So you have that as well. But, Coach, let's just be honest. We knew it was going to be moved eventually because the TV competition was going to be too much on that weekend. Because, Coach, I'm looking here. This was the Saturday, December 21st schedule, and this is just the big games. This isn't just even isn't like the Camilla Bowl and all these other random bowls. 12 p.m. Eastern Time, college football playoff on TNT. 1 p.m. NFL on NBC. 4 p.m. another college football playoff game on TNT. 4:30 an NFL game on Fox, and at 8 o'clock you got another playoff game on ABC ESPN. What what
Yeah.
do you what do we think? I mean, now there's been conversations about, why wasn't the game moved to possibly Friday night Well, there's a college football playoff game on Friday night that airs on ABC. So the question becomes, the selling point of the Celebration Bowl was always one, it was the first bowl game of the bowl season. That got taken away at one point. Then it was, well, we get the exposure on ABC. On ABC, 12 o'clock, only game on television. That got taken away when the NFL started playing more games on Saturday. And so at the end of the day, the conversation comes down to, do you want to break? Is the break that important, or do you want the ABC game where you're the only game on television at that time and you get the exposure, you get the TV ratings, you get all these perks, or do you want to get moved to ESPNU at like 3:30 in the afternoon and have to go up against all the NFL and college football playoff games where the viewership's probably under 1 million at that point?
Right. And I think just the landscape of football itself has changed since 2015, which was the first Celebration Bowl. And I think if you're being realistic about it, change was coming. And, it was just a matter of time. And it just sped the process up when the college football playoffs expanded. But you go back and you look at the numbers from the first couple of Celebration Bowls. I don't think anybody initially thought that time slot would generate the viewers. And once it did, I mean, it was just a matter of time before someone else was going to say, well, hey, let's look at that time slot with bigger dollars. And I mean, that's just what it is at the end of the day. Um, I I hate it, but what do you do?
And I think the misconceptions, have been one, that the SWAC and MEAC didn't have any say. They
Right.
were involved in the discussions the whole time. So this wasn't just ESPN sent a text to the MEAC and SWAC and
Hey,
was like,
look,
"Hey
this is what's
guys,
going on.
yeah." They had options, just like when ESPN was negotiating with the FCS National Championship. The committee had say in what they wanted to do. Do they want to play it on Friday night? Did they want to move it to Saturday morning? Did they want to move it to Monday night? Which they ultimately is what they decided to do. All these conversations were the same conversations that were surrounding the Celebration Bowl. So this idea that, listen, my guys at HBCU Sports do a great job. Kim Richard and all them, but they released like this scathing video about how ESPN operated in bad faith and they owe the SWAC this and that. No, the SWAC was involved in this decision. So this wasn't just sprung on these two conferences and they were just left in the dark and everything. And at the end of the day, the most important thing from what I was told is the money and the exposure and the opportunity to play on this grand stage. If you don't move the game, coach, you lose all of that. And now you
Right.
just become another game among a whole bunch of other games.
Another game, or you become not a game at all.
Yeah.
And, I get it when I hear people say you can't allow them to just do this, this, and this. Well, we're locked in until 20, whatever it is. So at that point, you're kind of at the mercy of the people who have the contract, who have the big money, who's paying you. You're kind of at that mercy. I'm locked into so many episodes with the Bluebloods. Hey, I want to do it on this day. And if it doesn't work, I mean, I'm not in position to tell the Bluebloods, hey, look, nah, this is what I want to show. No, because the Bluebloods own the right to the show. ESPN owns the right, and I get it. ESPN does what I guess the contract allows them to do, which you entered into that contract. So at the end of the day, whether you're like me when I go down to the car lot and anybody else in this chat, and if they say different, they're telling a story. When they hand you all that paperwork, you read initially some of it, but you take their word for what they're doing. And that's kind of what we probably did at the end of the day. And now we didn't read the fine print where it says that we have the ability to move, adjust times, whatever, at our discretion, meaning we'll tell you we're moving it. And, you either do it or you don't. So, my whole thing is you want the game. I'm a SWAC guy. I was never under the impression, the advantage was to to the MEAC because they had the time off and all that. I know that's been a big part of the argument as well. I know personally in the 3 games that we've lost, time off had nothing to do with that. Uh, we shot ourselves in the foot in 2 of those, and one of those we just got boat raced. But that's a whole other story.
And that was a really
But
good A&T team too. That people, for
oh,
some,
they had a
like
lot of guys,
yeah,
man.
and that's the conversation I want to get to, Coach. I didn't mean to, this is a good point to kind of include this in the conversation. This was a really good question asked. You look in the history of the Celebration Bowl, and you hear, and I don't really want to get into the break versus not a break, whatever it may be. How many times has the team that wasn't the most talented not won the game?
I'd say now, 2018, we were pretty stinking good, and we just happened to kick the ball to the #1 kick returner in the country.
Which was, that's like kicking the Junior Bergen. There was no reason to let that guy touch the ball.
At that point in time, we
Yeah.
battle all the way back. We're up, and we kick it to that guy. I don't, that's neither here nor there. I'd say outside of that year, and then I'd probably go as far as the Celebration Bowl penalty, because I think at the end of the day, Central was probably man for man better than Grambling that year. I don't know if you remember the year when he scores a touchdown.
They took his helmet off, and
30-yard extra point, they get blocked. That's the game. So I would say out of those 2 years, I'd say the better team has won every time.
And one of those years, the SWAC team won, which would offer counter evidence toward
the argument on the time. Yeah.
Maybe
my only argument was with that Jackson game, because I think the first one, I think they probably were the better team.
Yeah, I agree. They were the better team against South Carolina State. On paper, they were. I'm not trying to take anything from Trey Oliver, because they were the better team on that day. But for man, it's hard not to say Jackson wasn't the most talented team in both of those years. But I'm going to only give it the edge to 2021, because in 2022, they had a bunch of those players opt out, and they were going through the coaching change, which completely changes the conversation. So I think 2022 is a different conversation, but 2021 against South Carolina State, and this is no shot to them because they were really talented. Jablonski, Green, Godbolt, all them. But when you look at the offense that Jackson had that year, and then even the defensive front with James Houston and all them, they were the more talented team on paper, but they were better coached by Buddy Pugh. And but I think those 3 maybe, but other than that, I don't think there's this big, where you see these upsets in bowl games sometimes, Coach, where the 8-4 team goes out and just smacks around the 10-2 team. There's not a lot of examples of a team that is light years better than another team going out there and losing because of, I will say, I want to ask you this, because the argument's been the MEAC gets a longer time off than the SWAC. Does the conversation change now that the SWAC, real quick, I want to take Southern and Grambling out of the conversation, because we'll get into them next. But if let's say a Jackson State and Alcorn go to the Celebration Bowl this year, they get a bye week before the SWAC championship. But then you got the SWAC championship and the Celebration Bowl back to back. The MEAC champ won't play a game from, I think, the 23rd onwards. How does it become a different conversation at that point than what we've had over the past few years?
Before I answer that, I will go back to our initial conversation with that. The only other advantage I think it gave a MEAC team in those years up to now was the Davis Richardson surgery deal. If they're on the same time schedule, he's not able to play in that game. I don't know if they win it, but I don't know if they lose the game either if he's not playing. Right. So that's my point on that. But I don't think it changes. And I heard somebody make the point, and I can't remember who, because I want to give them credit, but I can't remember who actually said it. But it's the same with the NFL. You finish week 17 as a wild card, you have to play the following week and the playoffs. Um, Same with us, you know, week to week to week. And I think that has to be the mindset. I don't think you change your mindset because that it's the national championship game. You just got to continue to play. And you got to hope that, and to get to that point anyway, it takes a lot of luck. It takes you beating the injury bug. It takes bounces going your way. And, you know, you got to be really strategic, I think, now in the coaching aspect of it, of using all 110 athletes that you have that have redshirt eligibility throughout your year. So there's going to be some guys that may be playing for the second game in their college career in the Celebration Bowl to help give you depth, to help give you rest in certain situations. But those kids have been practicing all year, so it's not like they haven't been practicing or you know anything like that. And I know some people are going to say, "Well, the spotlight." You only make the spotlight as big as you want to make the spotlight from the guys with the collar shirt, if that's making sense, Pete. I
Yeah.
think, you know, you can think back to your career. I think back to mine. Your high school rival was always bigger from the coaching aspect, the way the coaches treated it, the way it was treated around school, than week two opponent. They were all important, but one was just made bigger because of, you know, the situation. So I think you just kind of have to keep that in perspective throughout your week. And like, I mean, nobody's tackling. You're not out there doing an Oklahoma drill the week before. You probably don't even have pads on, uh, just because, you know. So it's going to be a speed walkthrough. The only other pressure that will change is now you don't know who you're playing
Yeah.
from the MEAC side because you're sitting and waiting. And now you don't really get to jump unless you say, okay, well, we're going to break down 10 games from both of these teams that are playing in the championship game and got to go from there. And then, you know, the SWAC advantage is that we already know who's going to be the MEAC team. Now, our personnel, we've got to get ready for this game and we've got to tentatively not overlook this game, but we got to get ready for the Celebration Bowl. So it just kind of changes your preparation, I think, as well.
I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's no advantages. I mean, obvious, especially because, well, Coach, you know what's going to happen. Like, and I'm gonna use kind of I'm gonna take a jump here to make this connection. No one discussed injuries in All-Star games until it happened to Davius Richard. If like, and let's just say Jackson goes to the SWAC championship this year.
Not
Jacoby Morgan has an injury, knock on wood, like Davius Richard did. He's now out for the Celebration Bowl because they still find a way to win. Oh, bro, it's
change.
over. It's over.
It's changed. It's
Yeah,
changed.
it's over. I mean, the outrage, and it doesn't even have to be Jacoby and Morgan. What if Grambling goes and Miles Crawley gets hurt, or
Oh,
or whoever it may be? I mean, the conversation shifts completely now because now it's going to be, well, we had an extra game and they had this and that, and it's just going to be, it's going to be insane if that ever happens. That's where I think as long as there's no significant injuries in the SWAC championship, everyone will kind of just tiptoe around it as usual and we'll use it as an excuse when the SWAC loses. But if the SWAC wins, then they'll use then the MEAC will come back with the rest argument and it'll just go back and forth and it'll just be a good conversation piece. But as soon as someone gets hurt, the conversation's over because something's going, some AD somewhere. If it happens, let's just say to Jackson, Ashley Robinson is banging on the table until that gets changed. And same for you guys, you and your AD, if it happened to Alcorn banging on the table for something to change. The problem is what changes? Because here's the
that's
options,
what
Coach.
I can tell you. And like you, and I know where you're going. The option is not the option because we
Yep.
want the game. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
We want the game, and you know it becomes tricky now because the game is not going to change. When I say change, as far as the week in which it's played, because I mean it's a case, and I say it all the time. It's big bank take little bank, and the big bank is the college football playoffs. The staple has always been Georgia high school football. Um, you know, the draw is the indoor venue in December. Now, the next alternative is going to come up and say, well, you can go play it over at Georgia State where you play the week 0 game.
Not happening.
Nobody's going to want to play that because at the end of the day, that was kind of why the championship game left the outdoor venue in Alabama. A sleet storm and, weather. And now, now that's a whole other conversation. But in order to keep the game, it's going to be played within that week. I don't know what else you do. I don't know how else you change it unless you just say, hey, we'll take whatever time slot you give us. And now we're looking at a 10 o'clock kickoff.
I mean, and we've talked about it on this show. I don't know how reasonable it is or if it was even explored. And I think I saw a few people mention this in the replies. We could move it to after Christmas.
I ain't trying to wait, man.
Oh, I know you're not. I get it. And I think that's too long of a layoff. I really do. But I mean, that because Coach, we've mentioned it. Make a weekend out of it. Pick a weekend like early in January. In between, like those, what was it, like the semifinal games and the championship, and do an FCS weekend. The only problem is you would have to find a way to work it around the NFL playoffs, but you could do it like that. Or, really,
the other thing about that's not being discussed, though, Zach. I mean, you got to look at it now. The NFL it went to a different. I mean, they've extended their season as well.
Got that week 17 or 18 now, whatever it is.
Yeah. So all that has changed now. What I would say was the
he said the Falcons ain't doing nothing. He said the Falcons season's over early. Just go ahead and let us in.
Hey. Next thing you know, we're gonna be playing at 7A high school, in Georgia or whatever, because the Falcons surprised everybody. But at the end of the day, I think the contract is what the contract is, and you just kind of have to go with that. Now, when the contract's up, the landscape of college football could change again. I think it's what 4 more seasons,
2027 or 2028, one of those two, I think,
something like that. And then once you get to it, then you can kind of decide what you want to do. But what if they decide what they want to do? Then what? I was listening to a show. Shout out to Scotty. I just don't see TNT picking that up.
Not when they just bought the college football playoff.
Yeah. I don't see them picking that up. And I don't know the other options that would be, viable because like the Bayou, NBC, but it's not the real NBC. It's the one that you got to pay for.
Did they move it back? Did they move it back to NBC this year? Maybe
I don't know. I had a chance to go live.
Yeah. You were at the game, so I know you. I want to say it was on actual NBC this year. I know recently it was on like NBC Sports Network or something like that.
Or something like that. Yeah. And then you don't want to do that because I mean, look at the dust that was kicked up when everybody went behind the paywall for basketball games. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the outrage for was it the Chiefs and Dolphins game that went on Peacock last year?
Yeah.
In the playoffs, people were losing it over that playoff game being played on Peacock.
I know I was.
I know. I think my guy Dave's in the chat. Like Dave covers a lot of PMP and all that. I mean, I know there was a lot of people not happy about that because a lot of people at that time didn't have Peacock. But I mean, Coach, let's just be honest. The conversation has surrounded 2 games that are never going to move, and they can't.
Talk about it?
The Bayou Classic and Turkey Day are never moving. No. And I tried to tell people that we were in the HBCU nightly chat, and like we kind of talked about this before it was announced because we talked about it a day before, and I tried to tell because there were some MEAC folks in there that really didn't know, and I was like, so I have been told by Southern and Grambling fans they would rather leave the SWAC than move that game.
Let's not get that carried away. Hold on.
Coach, if they were told that they had to move the Bayou Classic, they'd be gone tomorrow. It'd be out. They'd be out. They'd pack their stuff up tonight.
Let's not get carried away.
Man,
But
they would be rolling. They'd be pulling out the driveway before the text was even sent.
the Mayflower trucks will show up.
Yeah. Oh man, listen, they got boxes prepared just in case now, just in case, just because of the social media outrage. I mean, and I get it because let's just be honest, Coach. I don't think people understand, and I want to leave the Turkey Day out of it because I don't really know how it affects Alabama State that much, and it's against a D2 opponent, but the Bayou Classic brings in so much money for Southern and Grambling that
Such a staple,
man, we're already talking about programs that need funding and have been with just the state has withheld funding from both of those programs, especially in the state of Louisiana, which has screwed both of those teams. They have to have that game, and
man.
it's not
I mean,
moving off that weekend.
it's such a staple, man, and I didn't realize it till I actually went in person. You know, people have the reservations, as crazy as it sounds, 3, 4 years out for this, circled around this weekend. And, one thing I will say about SU is that they travel freaking
Yeah,
well. Uh, I'm talking about well, just almost as good as Alcorn, but, not quite. But, that for them is almost like a SWAC championship game, you know, um, and the history, prestige. I know history and prestige doesn't put money in pockets, but at the end of the day, it puts money in pockets for them. So,
yeah.
to move that, uh, next question.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those deals.
hmm
I don't see that happening.
And I get the frustrate, like, because again, a common theme on this show is so many other shows I've been trying to push for this. And let's be honest, with social media, there's no room for discourse. Like, bro, it's just who's got the funniest remarks and like those, what is it,
That's it.
160 characters, whatever it is. But
Don't have to have any
two,
reason or logic.
yeah, two things could be true at once. I understand why the Bayou Classic is never moving, but on the other hand, I understand the frustration of the MEAC fans and some of the other fans from schools that aren't involved in the Bayou Classic. I get it. I understand the frustration where Alcorn and Jackson and whoever, like, I mean, Alabama State's involved, Alabama A&M, FAMU. If one of those teams ends up getting hurt in the SWAC championship and losing the Celebration Bowl, I understand if they point the finger at the Bayou Classic and is like, this is your fault. I get the frustration, but at the same time, you can't lose the SWAC championship either. Because I think Dr. Cavill made a really good point. People don't understand how much money is
Oh,
generated
man,
from the SWAC championship, especially from the host site. Man,
bro.
let Jackson keep hosting the SWAC championship. Man, the money is endless. And that income, coach, people don't know this, goes toward the conference payout, which is one of the reasons why the SWAC has a conference payout that's higher than some group of 5 conferences. So you can't lose the SWAC championship either.
No, no. Because you do that, then you run into what I call the MEAC problem, which is you end up with 3 teams, um, with rings, and then now you're flipping a coin, or on the Friday night lights where they had the phone call with the 3 people, to
Yeah.
see who gets in. You have that, and that's the thing I think you want to avoid. And then the other thing, that first SWAC championship game that we hosted at Alcorn, you couldn't see a blade of grass. You know, uh, Southern came, Alcorn came, and it was just ridiculous. The very next year, I mean, again, field to the rim before an hour before kickoff when they open the gates. That is something that I think if the officials from the VAC would see in person, they would hurry up and get to a championship game type thing. But to
I
take
don't
that away, I
I'm
don't
gonna
think
say
so.
I'm gonna say something super controversial here, and I know Josh is probably gonna kill me
Dun, dun, dun,
in the HBCU Nightly
dun.
chat. I don't think a MEAC championship is near as profitable as a SWAC championship is.
I mean, I could go with that, but the draw, I think, is what you know.
I, I
You're right, because
again,
you can wind up with a Delaware State championship and
I mean, okay, let's just be
Norfolk.
honest. Okay, so let's take it back 2 years ago. What was it? Jackson, Southern, and Jackson, and then in the MEAC you would have had Central versus Howard and Durham. Again, after Central just beat them by 50.
I think somebody. I remember somebody after that was like, "Who wants to see that again?" Was
Nobody.
that Coach
Nobody.
Oliver?
Yeah. The crazy part is people forget this. Jackson Southern was a rematch where Jackson shut them out, but it still was sold out because I was there. It was sold out. I was
The,
there. It was
the
crazy.
first one was horrible. Yeah.
It and this is from a Central fan. MEAC attendance is too shaky for a MEAC championship. I don't think it would generate half the revenue that the SWAC championship would, especially with only 6 teams. You wouldn't have the variety or the parity, I guess would be the better word there. And also, too, the brands are different, Coach. Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
brands are different. And I'll say this again: 2 things can be true at once. I don't think the MEAC needs a conference championship game. I really don't. Like at the end of the day, the only conference the only FCS conference in the country that has a championship game is the SWAC. So the MEAC's well within their rights not to have one.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it's not within their rights or that.
Oh,
My
that one
only
for you. Yeah,
argument
you're
to
good.
that. Okay. Well, I mean, my only argument to that has always been that I can't remember a year, and I shouldn't say that because anyway. But the last few years, there's been multiple champions.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And at some point, you know, me and you are going to meet up in a bar, and we're both going to have on MEAC championship rings, and that's going to be tough to explain to some folks.
Well,
Like,
they
wait a
got rid
minute.
of that. They got rid of the co-champion now. So even if
But
teams
but
tie,
I get
yeah,
that part. Yeah, I get that part. But if I'm the same, oh no, you're not. No, and I beat you. Oh no, we finna put up
yeah,
a banner. Now we're not gonna go full fledged FAMU newspaper, have a championship thing in the stadium and all that, but we're gonna have a banner. We're gonna do all that because I beat you, even though you go to the championship game. We have the
yeah.
same record. You know, uh, we don't have a championship game this year. Who gets the nod? PV or us? We get the nod. We got the better record, even though they beat us in the head to head. Whatever you know, it may be, but that's always been my thing with them to come up with a better way. And I guess they've gotten that whether it's through statistics or whatever. But, at the end of the day, I think as a coach, as a player, you always want to win it on the grass, not on paper.
I feel I think the difference is between the SWAC and the MEAC in terms of that is the SWAC kind of needs one because not everyone can play each other.
So
In the MEAC, everyone plays each other, so there's no need for a championship game because someone's going to have the tiebreaker. Someone's going to have the head to head. Like,
true.
yeah, I think that's why I'm glad they got rid of co-champs because you really shouldn't have a co-champs, a co-champ situation when you
Yeah.
lost the game on the grass. But it would be different in the SWAC because, Coach, let's just say this: FAMU didn't play Alcorn last year, so if y'all both finish the season out with the same record, who gets the nod?
True.
So
Uh, yeah.
I get why the SWAC has it, and this really is my take on it, Coach. And I've said this to people like we did this show because we missed the topic and everyone wanted our opinions on it. But I'm so tired of the debate already, and it is June 13th, and I am dreading, Coach, that last week of November through December when I'm super busy trying to cover everything, going through the playoffs, trying to get my travel plans. Twitter's going to be horrible when this really comes down to it this year. If it's someone really gets hurt or whatever, the SWAC should keep their model as it makes them a whole bunch of money. The MEAC should keep their model because adding a game would lose them money at the end of the day. Let's keep everything the same. Both teams have their model that works, or both conferences have their model that works. My thing is, you cannot complain about not having a break because you said the most important thing is a check. So collect your checks along the way, and the consequence is you don't get a break.
And that's the thing.
Unless
That's the thing that I hate is that's the thing that I hate is that you I hate the money talk because the money talk to me takes away from what we're supposed to be talking about, which is the sport, which is the kids, which is, the overall game. And now we're talking about, well, what makes the checks move. We all know that in the back of our mind, but to say that that's up front, like I just don't like the way that I don't like the way that sounds. And I'm not going to speak for Coach Thomas, but I can speak for our culture and what we have in the building and what we've building and what we've built. If we go out there in a championship and we win it, which we are, and someone gets hurt, a high ankle sprain or whatever, and can't play the next week in Atlanta, we're not going to make any excuses. It's next guy up, and if we've done our job throughout the year developing, then cool. Now, will it be a situation where John Gibbs goes down and insert Lenore's foot in it, and foot hits the ground running and runs for 700 yards versus Southern? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, it's one of those situations where it's got to be the next kid up. And we're when we show up in Atlanta and we're not full strength, we're not going to say anything about it.
That's fair. I just think both teams have a model that works, man. It's all good. And at the end of the day, it'll be fine.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
fun.
fun debate. It's all good. But I
It's
will
fun.
say it's going to be it's going to be a yearly debate after whoever wins about what happened. And also too, let's just be honest, this is no shot at Southern or Grambling. Neither of them have been in the position of going to the Celebration Bowl in a little while. So I think we'll be fine. And Southern never, I guess, on that case. So until it happens, we'll see playing 3 straight games and then plus you get a late bye week even playing in that late in the season. I do wonder if teams are going to the championship game. We'll see.
They've been in the SWAC championship game, so Southern's been a little closer than Grambling.
Agreed. And Timona, I would say it probably will in terms of viewership, but at the end of the day, it's all good. They moved the national championship game to a Monday night, which I think is really, really good. You get a Monday night on ABC with no competition, so that's a way better situation. A way better situation for the FCS national championship game. No NFL competition, nothing. That Monday night is perfect in my opinion. That they should have done it. They should have done it years ago, man. Why not play it on a Monday night with no competition? Everyone gets a long weekend, flies out Tuesday morning, perfect for travel. Coach, me and you had a blast last year. You get a full weekend now to kick it Monday night, go to the game, fly out Dallas next day. Perfect. Now, in terms of television schedules for semifinal, quarterfinal games, that will probably be worked out later. I would imagine that you're going to see, with the first round games for the college football playoff, with those games being on TNT, I would imagine you're going to see some of those games still on ESPN. And like Lawrence said, the quarterfinals are going to be on one of the ESPN channels on the 14th. So not really many changes for the FCS playoffs. And at the end of the day, go ahead.
I'm saying I don't think that the viewership for those early playoff games was really, really high, so to speak. Anyway,
you had a few you would get lucky, like when you got like the Montana States, North Dakota States playing in the second round. Obviously, like that one did pretty good numbers, but the early games isn't where the real money's made. Like you want the good matchups in the semifinals, and even and also too, the last time that the game was on ABC with no NFL competition, the game did just as many views as the Celebration Bowl. So I'm hoping moving it to Monday night, you see an improvement on that as well. So I think overall it was a good move for the FCS National Championship game.
But I think where the big challenge is going to come, and nobody really knows how it's going to work out, is now that the NFL has extended their schedule, how those playoff games are going to meet with the later college football playoffs, with the FCS, with the Celebration Bowl, things like that. So my question to you would be, SWAC championship, that Saturday was normally championship Saturday, with conference championships throughout. Now, I just wonder how that landscape is going to be now that Saturday. Usually we have that 4 o'clock-ish kickoff for the SWAC championship game.
On what, ESPN2 has historically been the SWAC championship?
Yeah. And then, after that, you flip over, you got the ACC championship or whatever. So now, everybody's talking about that, the Celebration Bowl. How is the SWAC championship going to be, affected? Will we have to have an 11 o'clock kickoff in Lorman, or will we have an 8 o'clock kickoff in Lorman? You know,
Luckily, I don't think the SWAC championship is going to be affected much just because it's on ESPN2. I don't think there's any competition for that time slot there. It'll probably be an afternoon kickoff, 3, 4 o'clock, probably still on ESPN2, just because all the other games kind of already locked into their spots. Like you usually have what ACC late night on like ESPN, ABC, the Big Ten's late night on so Fox, and then SEC is usually on CBS. But that kind of flips now. I think Big Ten's on CBS now, and SEC's on
I don't
ABC
realize.
because of all the new
No
TV
Pac-12
contracts.
game now, so
Yeah.
which was a
Okay, so
late
SWAC
game.
championships at 1 p.m. Central on ESPN2.
1 p.m. kickoff in Norman should
Which
end
is
up about
good.
4.
Now,
Yeah.
because the last 2 or 3 years, the SWAC championship's been on directly with the SEC championship, and the viewership has really suffered. Like I think Jackson State Southern only did like 150 to 200K in primes last year, which is really, really low at that point. Like I think they weren't even the highest rated FCS game that weekend, but I think the Celebration Bowl will be fine because they're the only. And I saw a lot of people get upset with the Army Navy game or whatever. And I don't understand why that's upsetting because so this is perfect for football fans. You got the Celebration Bowl in the morning, Army Navy game for lunch at about 2:30, and then at night you got the Camilla Bowl and the Heisman Trophy ceremony. That's a
I don't know,
perfect weekend.
and I didn't understand his outrage for that, and I was happy to see other people on the show, like, dudes, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, as football fans, what do we all want?
More football.
More football. So I didn't understand his angle with saying that they felt disrespected, and then he was like, name me the last couple championship teams, and I would you know ask him to name me 5 players that have played on both of those teams from the last 5 years.
Nobody
And
like and it's no offense. Listen, the pageantry is great. I'm a football guy, so I'll watch it. But
oh, and
let's be honest. I can tell you who's won the Celebration Bowl since it started. I can't tell you who's won the last 10 Army Navy games. I don't even know who won the game last year, and I watched it.
I mean, let's be honest. We're looking for the uniforms. We're looking, like you said, for the pageantry. Um, and we are just seeing it's football. It's something to get us to the next game,
It,
and it's no disrespect. I mean, it's something to get us to the next game,
bro, it's
and it's
it's just
usually good football.
outrage. I just think it's people on social media looking for something to be upset about. And it was a
Yeah.
talking point for him, and it's all good. But that was crazy. I think at the end of the day, decisions are being made to best suit all these FCS games down the
Everybody.
stretch, whether it's a Celebration Bowl, FCS playoffs, and we'll see how it plays out. This is the first year that we're all presented with the same challenge. I'm curious to see what the TV numbers are, attendance, all that kind of stuff. Is this year, and then we can talk about do improvements need to be made moving forward. I just think people reacted real harshly at first, and then they kind of have slowly calmed down. But coach, let's shift to this, our last topic. SWAC football tiers, man. Shout out to our guy Lionel, PV versus everybody. He had a show with G and everyone on there. Doc Holiday talked about SWAC tiers. Everyone's kind of hit this topic, coach, while we were gone, and I wanted to hit it here. So, me and coach are going to go through these teams. Obviously, coach is going to have the championship category with Alcorn at the top. They're preparing for that now. Like the rules here are you can name the tiers, whatever you want, put whoever you want in them as long as you can justify, man. I'll kick it off here with the first tier, coach.
Are you gonna put it up to the side for us or no?
Oh, no, I didn't make a graphic for it, man. We're just going to talk
Okay.
about this
Okay.
because I just
Okay.
got it all memorized up here. I would say the first tier is just do what you can. That's what I'm gonna call it. Just do what you can in this first tier, and that's UAPB, Texas Southern, and Valley.
I can rock with
Just
that.
just do what you can. And here's why: no matter how many wins those programs get, no matter who they lose to, no matter what goes on this season, those coaches are safe. And if you win 2 to 3 games at any of those programs next year, you did a good job. Just do what you can. Win the games you're supposed to. Don't have any D2 losses, and you're fine. Just do what you
Stay
can.
out of the news.
We understand the difficulty going into the season for all these teams. UAPB Valley is they're what they are. It's a difficult place to win in both of those spots. And Texas Southern, new head coach, a lot of question marks coming into the
Got
year.
started late.
Yeah, started real late, real toxic coaching search. I want to see what they look like. There's really not a lot coming out of that program, to be honest with you, Coach. Like usually,
Yeah,
I
no,
could
no, no,
I could
nothing.
give you some information about most of these teams and how spring training went, how the spring game went, what's going on during the summer. There's nothing coming out of Texas Southern right now. It's just question marks. And what does Jace look like going into this next year? So all those three programs have coach enter the season with no expectations. Just get us what you can get us. Just do what you can do. I would move it up, and I would just call this one you. The clock's ticking.
I know where you're going.
The clock's ticking with these programs, and I'm putting Alabama A&M and Southern into that tier.
Hmm.
And here's why. Obviously, A&M's a pretty self-explanatory. Kyle Maynard either has to win or he's going to be on the first bus out. And if you lose the Magic City Classic, it's going to get real hot in Huntsville. You have to win the Magic City Classic this year. I don't even know if he'll get back to Huntsville if he loses that game in any sort of fashion. And the only reason I put Southern in here, I get it. First year head coach. If getting to the SWAC championship game and having a and they had a winning record last year at one point, gets you fired in just 2 years. And Dooley was supposed to be this promise that everyone was hyped when they hired Dooley, coach. They make a hire now that is less hyped, and you think they're going to be okay with a losing season?
Less
Go
money to
ahead.
raise.
Go ahead and go ahead and not win 6 games this year. Because what do you know the tone and the feeling in Baton Rouge if they finish the season 3-9
Oh
or
man,
4-8 and they don't beat Jackson or Grambling or and Alcorn?
homecoming could get real, 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 real tough.
Man, listen, Southern is a pressure cooker for head coaches. And after what just happened with Dooley, listen, the clock started ticking after the press conference ended for Graves. You better listen, you better compete with Jackson to start the season.
Got to.
If Jackson beats Southern, coach, in a dominant manner and is not even close, I'm
It's
telling you,
getting hot in here.
there is going to be people in this chat, in Scotty's chat, in Timona's chat, in Doc's chat, in Perry's SU Journal chat. They're going to be calling for his job by week 3.
Nah, they gonna say we'll
Oh,
give
you're
him more
crazy,
time.
coach. Coach, there were people calling for him to be fired in the crowd at the SWAC championship. I'm telling Coach, I'm telling you, Southern's going to be on
Uh,
fire if they lose. With the
I
losing
was,
record, it is a wrap. If they
I
finish with the
was,
losing record this year, if he has a losing record this year, coach, got to win the SWAC the next year.
ain't no doubt.
So that's why the clock's ticking. Now the next tier, I'm just gonna call it sleeper teams. These are the sleepers in the conference where I think they're going to be better than last year. I'm not ready to call them contenders yet, if that makes sense. These are teams that I think are going to be improved, but they're not contenders. In this tier, I'm putting Grambling State and Bethune-Cookman.
Mm.
I got Grambling in here because, coach, they lost a lot, which that's a bunch of question marks. That's why they can't be a contender. But they have a returning quarterback that's super talented. And man, let's just be honest, Mickey Joseph did work on the recruiting trail and in the portal. They have a lot of new guys that have to gel early, but you can't say Grambling's not talented
They
going into
brought in
next
30,
year. They
brought
got
in
two
30 names.
Yeah, they got 2 coordinators with a lot of SWAC experience. I'm not confident about the one OC. We'll see what Rollins does with the defense. But Grambling's a team that I don't think is in a position that, Graves is coming into Southern. They have a good bit of talent, returning quarterback. I think Grambling could be a sneaky team, but they have way, way too many question marks for me to put them any tier higher. And then Bethune-Cookman, same thing, Coach. We've talked about Bethune being a
Looks really good
sleeper
on paper.
on this show. I really do think Bethune is going to be a lot better this year. It's just the question mark becomes, can they get over that hump? Because, Coach, we see across the country, even in the FCS, there's teams with a lot of talent that are kind of primed to take that next step, and they'll beat the teams they're supposed to. But once they go up against those top teams in the division, they fall short.
Can you get one?
And
Yeah,
so,
can you get one of those?
so these sleeper teams are teams that are just right there on the cusp, but I need to see it proven on the grass, like you would say. And so that's why I got those two in that one. The next one is contenders with question marks. So we have the sleepers, and now we have contenders with question marks, where these are teams that, Coach, I can see getting to the SWAC title game, but they just have one or two question marks that prevent me from putting them there. In this tier, I got FAMU, PV, and Alcorn. I'm putting PV there because, Coach, I don't care what they have coming back. Last year, people couldn't name a player off that team that deserved first team SWAC honors, and that
Right,
team went to the SWAC championship somehow.
right. I agree.
I don't know how they did it. I still don't know how they got there. And they did. They just find a way to get there year after year after year. And so I'm not going to call them not a contender, but I still have question marks because, let's be honest, as good as Anthony Whedon is as OC, they got to find a quarterback. And I know people
Austin
are hyping up that kid from Houston. I don't know if he's the guy. Zero film from Houston for that kid. But if they find a quarterback, that team does have enough talent to get through. And the West is just so up in the, Coach, really outside of you guys and PV, everybody else is a big question mark. So could PV struggle in all their games outside the West and get there with a 6-6 record again?
It's happened before.
I,
It's happened before.
it's there. Now, Alcorn defense is there. Defense will be in the next tier. It's just quarterback. We got to see it from Mako. Because, Coach, at the end of the day, we've seen this trend of the SWAC. You have to have good quarterback play to win it all. And as hyped as, listen, because I was pushing the bandwagon. We had an interview on the channel with him. We were pushing Mako on the show. He's got to prove it this year and stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. And then also, I like what they added at running back, what you guys added at running back, but I got to see it in the SWAC.
No doubt about it.
So
no doubt about it.
That's why I got them. And then FAMU is probably the closest to being bumped up. But, man, listen, I think I've talked about this on the show a million times. Cornerbacks are there. Their secondary is going to be legit next year at FAM.
You think so?
Yes, their secondary is there. Kendall Bowler and all those guys, they're going to ball out in the secondary. And I trust
they lost their leader.
I still think they're going to be good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think FAMU's there's an argument that FAMU's probably is. I think they got a top 2 secondary in the conference next year. That's going to be my bold prediction in this conversation. I think FAM secondary is there. Now, the question marks for FAM for me, quarterback and defensive line. And I get it. They added a bunch of new pieces. And there was a conversation I was having, Coach, and someone mentioned the way FAM was adding transfers reminds them of how Alabama A&M panic add transfers after they lost to Killglass. Where they went for volume over
dangerous.
quality. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh.
That's dangerous.
That's a dangerous one. And I think if they go with Junior Maritovich, I feel more confident with FAMU competing. I do not trust the kid they added from FAU.
Very limited film on him as well.
I get it. Everyone's pointing to a season he had like 3 years ago. I got to see more than 3 years ago you had a halfway decent season at your previous school to feel confident about it. And he had a terrible spring game. From everything I've seen and people I've talked to, Junior Maritovich should be the guy. Running back, they're loaded. I think wide receivers are unproven, Coach, but man, it's FAM. They're going to have guys who go on the outside and go make plays. And as much as talent as they had on the defensive line, did they add guys that are going to make immediate impacts? I don't know that. And they've utilized
Big
elite
shoes to
edge.
fill.
You look at the past 2 years, they've utilized elite edge rushers
Yeah, that's what I'm
on
saying.
that
Big shoes
defense.
to fill. Yeah.
Isaiah Land, Anthony Dunn. They've had some of the best edge rushers in the conference. Do they have that this year? Because without that, that puts a lot of pressure on the secondary. A whole lot of pressure on the secondary, as much as talented as they are. But I think all the other positions are there for FAM. It's just quarterback play, and do they have that elite defensive lineman that they've kind of leaned on? And also, too, let's not forget they did lose their D coordinator.
Yep.
They did
and
do
their
that.
offensive
Now,
coordinator.
yeah, they did, and I trust Milton Patterson and those guys, but I still got to see it because every time you change a play caller, it does change stuff. And then I think you go to the favorites tier, and Coach, I've been vocal about both of these teams kind of being my favorites to come out the East, and that's Bama State and Jackson. I know people hate that.
Let me get my coach JB on.
Yeah,
What?
Coach, and I had a conversation the other day with someone about this, and I don't
Wait,
remember
B,
even.
wait, B, wait, B,
I
wait,
do,
B, wait, B,
Coach.
wait, B,
Coach, it was
wait,
Gerald.
B.
That's who it was. It was Gerald Huggins, writes for the site.
Okay,
National
so for
scout.
this tier for me, you should rename as Hype
These are just
Central.
yeah, that's fine. We'll call it Hype Central / Contenders, and that's why I said Fam and All Corner almost there. Hey, there we go. Let's call it this: the Caitlin Clark tier. The Caitlin Clark tier. I like it. Shout out to Lionel. Shout out to Lionel. The Caitlin Clark tier. Now, Coach, I've been.
Please explain this, man. I
I
come
got you.
on, yeah,
I'll
please.
explain it. Bama State's been the preseason hype train all season long, at embodying
No
them.
doubt.
I think, and I understand they lost some secondary pieces. I've been talking to Gerald, watching some film. Their secondary is going to still be good. That defense is still going to be good.
They lost
really
two NFLers on the outside.
Yep.
They lost 100+ tackles in the middle.
They replaced him with another 100+ tackle guy.
Not the same. They replaced they lost an unmovable object at the shade who ate up a lot of space in there.
Yeah.
And you and God rest his soul. And Danny Green's tone. If you want to crowd them, go crowd them. But they are what they are.
That's fine. That's fine.
And listen,
I'm down. I'm down for combining the top of those two tiers and just calling it contenders there. If you want to move Alcorn and Fam up and just put those four,
I think we all do the same thing.
No,
I'm with you though. That's your tier. I'm with you, but I'm just like,
I'll
man,
put all. If we put all four in there, I'll just call it the contenders then, because I think the champion of the SWAC comes from those four teams.
And remove, I can get with that. And I was gonna say, remove the place that I receive my direct deposit from. This is why I cannot put those two people, those two teams, Bama State and the school up the street in a championship tier.
But someone has to be there.
I get it, and I would almost put us.
If you're not putting Jackson or Bama State in that contender tier, you're saying it should be Fam then.
And you know my rule on this. Until somebody beats them. Just because. Now, Fam had a gazillion kids leave as well. Yeah. But Jackson had a gazillion kids leave. They brought in a gazillion. Alabama State, outside of Body and the linebacker.
Dozier, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'll adjust it. The four are in there. Alcorn, Fam, Jackson, Bama State. No,
I just had to get my coach JB on. Like,
yeah, you're good. No, I will allow that, because those are all the contenders. If I had to put money on it right now, if I went to Vegas and they said you could pick four teams to bet on, and if one of those four win, you win the money. I'll put an Alcorn, Fam, Jackson, Bama State in there, and then PV would be in that next tier. If they can find a quarterback, we'll move them up. But for me, Coach, I know everyone hates this, and everyone knows I'm not a Jackson person. The more film I watch, God, I think they're going to be good.
Hey,
I really do.
Miss Body, I'm not putting anybody on chopping block, Miss Body. I'm just saying the conference itself to me, and I like every tier you had. I just wouldn't name that the championship tier. Uh,
That's what I said.
I-
We redid it. We had so the tiers
that's the
are just do what you can, and that's UAPB, Texas Southern Valley. Then you had the clocks ticking, A&M and Southern. You had the sleepers and Grambling and who was the other one? It was
Cookman.
Grambling and
Cookman.
Bethune.
Cookman.
And then you got contender question mark because contender questions and that's PV. And then you have the true contenders and that's FAMU, Jackson, Bama State, Alcorn. Those are the
Right, but
tiers.
at first you didn't have us in there. You had us in
Yeah.
the other one. But
I had you guys in fam. I moved y'all into that one because that's more like it.
I would only have two tiers. There's
Two tiers. That's
there's there's do what you can and get to the fight, and then there's the dice game. Because the upper part of that tier, the dice game tier, is truly what it is. It's nothing but a dice game. And I say that because there's so many unprovens. Uh, it's literally picking up the dice, click clack, throw it out there, and what happens? Okay, boom, you're eliminated. You'll roll again, boom, you're eliminated. To me, there's a line. I mean, no disrespect. I might be the
okay.
next head coach at Valley, but are we really expecting Valley
No,
to be in the championship hunt
no,
after week 4? Okay. Are we expecting UAPB to be in the
no.
championship hunt after week 4? And this is not bulletin board material. This is just, let's be realistic here, right? Um, and at the end of the day, and they may show up every time we play any of these teams, like the 78 freaking Jets or something, 68 Jets. But at the end of the day, when you put it on paper, and you still have to play the games, no doubt about it. If we're being real,
Mr. Campbell said after week 2, the championship run is for Valley UFPB.
I'm trying to be diplomatic as best I can. And
Oh,
then
Mr.
there's a
Campbell's funny.
line. There's a line, right? And then the next tier starts. And then I think in that next tier, I think that's where everybody's kind of grouped at because you just don't know. Uh, you can go back and look
Oh,
after I don't want to say the spring game, after one scrimmage, Coach Dishman is talking about how they feel they are right there and going to make a run at the Celebration Bowl. And I'm like, Coach, what? But I mean, everybody, if you're not feeling like that now, you in the wrong spot. If you're not feeling like
that's
that
true.
now,
Yeah,
you're in the wrong spot.
who was our guy, Maurice Drayton at the Citadel last year, where coming into the
We,
year, he was like, we're terrible. He was like, we suck. We're a bad
hey,
football team.
hey, he was serious. He was like, I don't care. I know you're supposed to be optimistic, and I am. We're not very good, but at the end of the day, if you're really being realistic and you go by and you look at it, there's really two lines. And I think there's the bottom line, and there's the top line. And everybody
So,
above that top line is straight dice game.
so
Nothing but the dice game.
you think everybody's above that line but UAPB and Valley?
No, heck no. Texas Southern's right there.
Okay.
I think A&M's right there.
Okay.
I love Coach Boehner. I love it, but I just think he has an uphill climb. So I think they're there as well.
Okay.
Uh,
So that's 4 underneath the line. So you got 8 teams above the line and 4 below. All right.
it's the dice game. Nope. I think
Bethune-Cookman win it?
man, a lot of things that got to go right.
Ah,
I think
that's tough.
they're below that line.
Okay,
But I
so
think
they're
they're
below
really
it. Okay.
close. They're below that
Okay.
line, but I think they're close. That line's right there. Cookman's like right there. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
That's
A&M is
fair.
like right there. You know what I mean?
Southern Grambling.
I think Southern is under Cookman just because
Ooh.
they lost so much. There's so much. I mean, what have you heard out of there? There's so much going on. And I think Coach Graves is in I think he's in a really tough spot. I think the schedule is not really set up. They don't have the school from California. They don't have the school from Florida, Florida Memorial. That's who
Yeah.
they really need in the first 2 to 3 weeks. And he doesn't have that buffer. You know what I mean? To get it going, to get the fan base energized about what he can do.
So that's
I
fair
feel
because
like Grambling is right there as well.
are they under
Uh,
or over though?
they're right there. And I say that because in no way, shape, or form, I don't care if you're in high school or little league, there's no way you can send 30 kids down the road and bring in another 30 kids, and you only have them for one freaking month before you start camp and expect it to gel and be completely, we've all brought in. Because that's just not the way college football is right now. And I can say that because I lived that. When that transfer portal, we went all in and there was 37 different agendas. You know what I mean?
That's
And then
fair.
when it got late, it was like, okay, I got to get mine, blah, 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 blah. And it's just it's such a fine line, man. When something goes left, it could really go left because those kids, you don't have enough kids that are the foundation. And I think, that was one of those things. And I get it. You want to come in as a head coach, you want to have a big shakeup, but to send 30 plus kids down the road and then bring 30 new ones in, not having them for the month of June. You get them in there for July, uh, and then you're right at it at the end of July with another week and a half to get ready for
Yeah.
week one. Bro, there's a
I'm
20-hour rule.
I'm with you. I mean, so you got 7 teams below the line, 5 above. You have
Yeah,
PV,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Alcorn,
yeah.
PV, Alcorn, FAM, Jackson, Bama State are your 5 that are contenders.
Contenders. Dice game. I didn't say
Or dice game,
dice game.
dice game. Okay.
Dice game.
So at
Dice
least
game.
they get to the table to play the dice game. The rest,
Yeah,
just do what you
yeah.
can. I think it's fair because if I had to put my top 5 teams in the SWAC, and this is in no particular order right now, it would easily be FAMU, Jackson, Bama State, Alcorn, PV.
I can
I I,
take that.
I think looking at the
I
conference,
can go with that.
I think the divide between those top 5 teams is it, I'm not gonna say huge, but I think there's a gap there. And I think the teams that kind of live in that gap that like, and this is kind of the goes back to my tiers, a team that can slide into those gaps, Grambling and Bethune-Cookman if everything go right for those 2 programs. I just year 1 at Southern, I'm not gonna get I see Coach Green. I don't see it.
I don't.
Like
I don't. And this is why, because last year we were here, and I get it. It's a new year. It's a new year. Last year we were here, and you have to take into consideration again, and we talk about it all the time on this show when we talk football, not just SWAC. When we talk FCS football, football period. If your trigger man is not the trigger man, it's just going to be an battle, uphill
mm,
battle.
I
And you can go back and you can look after Kincaid left. What happened? After Glass left, what happened? You know what I mean? After Felix Harper left, we had a drop off. You know what I mean? Uh, Jeremy Musa, he's gone now. What the next guy got? Who is he? I mean, it's easier said than done. It looks really good, 7-on-7, t-shirt and shorts. But when they're really shooting at you, can that guy make plays and stay in the moment and be calm? You know, I use Jackson, the school up the street, as a case in point. Started out with the one kid, it was all fine and dandy, and people figured out, oh, he can't freaking run. Hey, tackle the dive, put him in a situation where he's uncomfortable. Oh, that thing went downhill quick, right? And then now you got to come in with the other kid. Other kid gets hurt, we're right back to where we started. So your trigger man has to be, I think, a guy that I don't want to say proven, but he's got to be a guy that has seen what he's going to see.
I
You know,
think that's where my initial divide came. I guess I could have named it differently, but to me, that's what separates Bama State and Jackson from the other contenders. because
And don't forget now, Tyler Mako started the season for us.
Yeah.
It was rocky. It was
Well,
rocky.
well,
It
we
was
did.
rough.
We still haven't got to see Mako against FCS talent though. Is the problem?
Right at 100%.
Yeah, at
Because he comes
100%.
out, and we go to Stephen F. Austin, and he's on one leg, and we still put him out there. That's a whole other discussion. Uh, but we saw what he can do. He takes it 80 down the middle versus Southern Miss, but he also threw 2 picks.
Yep.
And, that's one of those things that, if he gets fixed and he's still as dangerous as he can be with his legs, we have a guy that's taking snaps. Came in versus Southern, uh, had some plays for him in the playbook that week, did some things. Uh, you know, Miles Crowder has done some things for Grambling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know Body's done things in the conference. What Bama State's going to do to make sure he's completely comfortable, we don't know yet. We saw their debacle last year with the 2 quarterback system. So to me, all that plays a factor, and I still think Morgan up at the school up the street has still got some question marks as well. So that's why I say that's the dice game.
Yeah, and I get the conversation about new coordinators, and like I said, Fam would be right there in that category too if they would name Junior Maritovich the quarterback. I think Maritovich has the potential to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. The problem is, I really think if they roll out Richardson, it's going to be a long season. I mean, I don't see a situation where that kid doesn't throw 15 picks this year in a full year.
Right.
Just personally. So I don't know. And everyone saw their post about the QBs and where they posted both of them. Could they run a 2 QB system?
Hey, what Steve Spurrier say? You got 2, you got none.
Possibly. I mean, it's worked. I mean, it worked for like the Montana States and the Sac States a few years ago and stuff. So I mean, I'm not going to say
that
they
takes
never
patience.
work.
Ain't no doubt.
Yeah,
it takes patience to do that.
And also they have to be different enough where you can. Okay, so this is the conversation about 2 QB systems. You want them to be different enough where they can bring different things to the table, but not different enough where they're one-dimensional, because then when you bring one in, you give away what you're going to do. If that makes sense, coach, because you want them to bring
same thing with Bama State last year. Yeah.
With the Sac State with the Sac State rotation a few years back, they had a kid who could run, but he also was a competent enough passer where you couldn't just load the box against him.
Yeah.
And then
some stuff here and there.
The other kid was less of a dual threat and more of a pocket passer, but he had enough ability to run that you still had to watch the run. But if you have a situation where you've got a guy like Miles Crawley who's not a scrambler, and then you got a Mako, kind of gives away what it's going to be, because obviously Mako is going to be a lot more prone to run than a Miles Crawley. If Junior's there, I give Fam a really good shot. I think. I'm just watching the film, coach. One, I do think I saw enough from Jacoby and Morgan last year to think he's going to be really good. The one question mark for him is I would have liked to see him finish the Alcorn game and not get hurt in that one. How does he handle the pressure down the stretch? Because let's just be honest, because you knew this, you were on the sideline. Once he goes out of the game, the defense was not worried about Jason Brown with all the talent you guys had defensively.
It was a side release, ain't no doubt.
Yeah. And shout out to Coach Said. I mean, I'm sure he felt way more confident taking a little bit more chances defensively with blitzes and certain coverages with Jason Brown in the game compared to Jacoby and Morgan, who could beat you in a multitude of ways. I mean, and then also too, on the flip side, you had a guy in Montario who literally could not be covered for some reason, and they did not know what to do with 14 on the other side of the ball for 2 years. They didn't know what to do with them.
It's gonna be a hard replace, and I'm glad you said for 2 years, because I've had debate after debate about what happened with him and the 100 kid, and everybody's like, ah, and I'm like, okay, all he did was give him 100 yards. I mean, but it is what it is. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, I would feel confident with that. I just the biggest question mark in that kind of tier for me, coach, is PV. Like I said, I mean, if I
Well,
asked the chat to name the most important player from that team last year, there'd be some people who won't even have an answer for you, and then we probably get 15 different answers.
I'm saying when you have a fifth-year guy, uh, whatever the quarterback was, that's a tough replace. I don't care. And unless you have blowout games to where you're able to pull him out and give another kid a whole quarter to himself, uh, that other kid, I don't care where he came from, he's starting from a new at your spot. So, that's tough. You're replacing a fifth-year kid with experience, and no one else took a snap his whole entire time he was there. That's a lot of minutes, a lot of game time that you have to replace. So,
And it's a huge scheme difference between what Frederick was doing and what Anthony Whedon's bringing from
supposedly
Campbell.
we don't know. I mean, we don't know.
That is true, and that's a good point. PV's defense is bend but don't break. They really didn't have a stifling defense, but they would get the stops when they needed to. Now we got a question: top 3 QB rooms in the SWAC. We might save that topic because I know all the starters. I just don't know if I know enough about the backups and their potential
Yeah, let's
to
let's
give you
revisit
that.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
let's
gonna revisit.
revisit that one.
I'm gonna write that one down. That's a good question. We have to break down the
Yeah,
top
thinking
QB
about
rooms
that one because
in the
after
SWAC.
Morgan, now that Brown is gone, who's going to be the new guy, the new number two up the street?
Well, they had
Now
that
that
guy.
Jason Brown's gone.
The guy who was, I think he was hurt part of the year. Is he the guy from ULM, Zai McDonald? I think
Hmm.
that's his name.
Is he still there?
It's Zai something.
Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there.
Okay.
And then they got the freshman that's in the wings too, the Ethan Terrell kid out of Louisville, the 3-star.
Yeah. I remember him. Yeah.
And then Alcorn, you got Mako, but you got the 3-star kid out of Georgia who came in.
Right. Who
Yeah.
started who beat PV, who was a couple plays away from beating Jackson that year, so he's got playing time as
Yes,
well.
so Alcorn's got a good one. You also got FAMU with Junior in there. You got the kid who we'll see. I'm not confident on him, like I've said. And they
Yeah.
also got
I think Cookman brings back everybody that took a snap for them.
yeah,
Um,
and that,
as
they
well.
added some solid talent too out of the portal. I'm trying to think because outside of Crawley, they lost the Calvez
They brought
kid
a
to the
kid in though.
portal.
Yeah, he left, but they brought in another kid, which kind of raised an eyebrow for me because I'm like, yeah, okay. Because
Yeah.
I've always said that Miles wasn't a
Now
Dooley type quarterback, but that's a whole nother show. Uh,
an underrated one, Southern.
who's going to be the guy? Harold's gone.
Yeah, Harold's gone. You got Noah Bowden, I think that's how you pronounce it. Noah Bowden, um, Bowden, whatever his name is. Then you got the 2 3-star kids that were true freshmen last year. You had the kid from Woodward Academy in Atlanta, and then you had the local kid who was the highest rated recruit to sign with an FCS program 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Those
Calvin's out of Grambling. Where did he go?
UT
Uh,
Martin.
UT Martin. Yep.
He'll be a backup
He went
this
to
year
UT
because
Martin.
they got Dent coming back, who was an all conference quarterback for them last year. So Calvez will be a backup, but he'll probably be able to compete for the job next year. I would imagine. Yeah, Hooker's the other quarterback that I was thinking of at FAMU that they have in. And then Jackson has another transfer, the Cameron McCoy guy.
That's his name. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the transfer they brought in. Texas Southern, you got the returning kid, but I don't really know who
Jace.
else they have behind him
Yeah.
because you didn't really get to
Um,
see anyone else because once Body went down, they brought he came in and started the whole year. That's T-Set and Woods. Woods is the kid from Woodward, and T-Set's the local kid who I really like. The kid from Woodward can ball. And the thing with Southern is everyone's saying Noah's going to be the starter there. If either of those kids don't get playing time this year, one of those guys are going to hit the portal and they're going to get some offers. because both of those kids are ballers. So, listen, there's some decent depth at quarterback now. A&M, they got
That's gonna be a question.
they got the
They've
they
been
got
searching.
they got the kid that's returning, the one that ran for like 300. Is it Langford?
Yeah, the
Xavier
kid left.
Langford's coming back. They have the transfer from UT Martin, um, a few years ago, and then they also got the kid that kind of went viral. He's like the 6'8" kid, the true freshman out of
Yeah,
Georgia,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think. The dude's bigger than their starting left tackle.
yeah. He's not just 6'8". He's like some pounds.
Yeah, he's like he's literally bigger than some people starting offensive line.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so bigger than some people starting offensive line. So I mean, there's some decent quarterback talent. Then you got the kid at Valley, the freshman
Who's
coming
up for
back,
the
Ty
who's up for that
Williams,
whatever that was.
the Jerry Rice Award. So and then UAPB, I want to say returns the guy that
Everybody that
started
takes
the
snap.
end of last year. He was a junior. I don't remember his name. I think he's still committed there. He's on their roster at least. So man, I think the quarterback plays just got to take a step forward, man. Coach, and me and you have talked about this on the show a lot. The SWAC as a whole just needs to see it move forward. Like it,
And I and that's a two-part thing to me because I think a lot of that I don't care if you got Dan Marino back there. If you can't protect Dan, man, Dan's gonna look like me back there. So who you want back there? Me or Dan? I'm faster than Dan. You probably want me back there. But at the end of the day, we've gotta recruit better up front. That's as a as a whole, conference wise, and it just only got tougher because of the poaching from the bigger ups coming down. So anybody that we have that's tremendous at left tackle as a sophomore, we're gonna have to work like hell to keep him for his junior year because we saw what happened. Kid played on a team that was 0-37 and hits the portal and he gets an offer because he's 6'6", 6'7", whatever, whatever. So, the game's only gotten tougher for us little guys uh, up front, but I think that goes hand in hand with the quarterback play. And you got to improve one to get the improvement from the other. But hey, I'm with you. You got to be able to throw on the run, man. Come come to my academy. I got you.
and Miss Body makes a good point too. Good good QB coaches just aren't found throughout the FCS level. You've also got like the quarterback coaching. I don't even know if it's just a quarterback coaching. I do think quarterback development has taken a hit to a point, but also as much as there's poaching of talent at the FCS level, there's poaching of good. If you have an elite quarterback coach, he's probably going to take a job. Like he's not. They're not flying under the radar.
But that's a whole nother show too, because I'm like, okay, so what constitutes a guy being an elite coach?
The elite play on the field. So at the end of the day, even if you're a good
I'm
coach, if
elite.
yeah,
I'm elite, but as far as an elite quarterback coach, but I also think that goes with the promotion, the social media thing, and the whole nine. Uh, I've always coached and been happy where my feet are, but I think now with this new wave of young guys, and it's okay, uh, they're only here in the SWAC, and it's been said before, nobody wants to get stuck in the SWAC, HBCU football. So those guys come in and they're really good for 1 or 2 years, and then they're out. Whether it's a better job, an equal job, uh, they just want to get out of that situation. But again, like I said, that's a whole nother show. But it's all in what guys want. Now we can get the heads of these schools on here as well. Some of those guys need to be paid better. Ain't no doubt about it.
let me ask you real
And that
quick
keeps a lot of people.
because we're just kind of freestyling now. So appreciate y'all
Let's turn
rocking
it
with
into the
us, man.
lounge.
Yeah, hit the like button, all that stuff, man. We're just gonna talk about some just random topics now, man. Not even on the list. Private QB coaches have been super popular over the last few years. As a coach, how much give me your take because I've heard a few different things on it. Because obviously there's some coaches, especially at the P5 level, that don't allow this, and they'll, or pick or send kids to certain QB coaches because of connections. At this level, just for you being around the game, have private QB coaches been a problem? And how much say do you put? How much of your opinion do you put into a player telling you, "Coach, I'm gonna go work out with this guy this summer"?
Um, it hadn't been an issue. One of our kids works out with Quincy Carter, good friend of mine, um, former first pick of the second round, starting quarterback, Dallas Cowboys. Everybody knows the story. But the thing that's really good about QC is QC came to campus and wants to know, hey, what does he need to work on? Yada yada yada. I think that's where the disconnect comes because I think those private coaches are all trying to make a name for themselves as well. So they're coming up with different things that may not be conducive to what you're teaching or what you're wanting. So when I'm working with receivers or cornerbacks, hey, this is what I teach. But when you go back to your school, you do what they tell you to do. And I don't know if a lot of those private guys are doing that. So I think that's kind of where the disconnect comes because they are telling those kids to do X, Y, and Z. But then when you get to your school, your university, hey man, this is A, B, and C. What are you doing? Hey, well, Coach Zach told me when I do this, Coach Zach don't work here. So I think that's kind of where it kind of combats. But QC is really good with us. That's the only one that I can think of that we kind of had dealings with. But he wants to know what kid needs to work on, and that's what they work on when they're with him.
So I guess for people who haven't really been involved with this, I guess you could speak to wide receiver because I guess you're not, you don't coach the quarterbacks. Like, do wide receivers do a lot of this? Go
Yes,
find,
yes, and it's worse because I have to tell my guys because they all have these trainers. So I tell my guys when they get back and they're doing all this, and anyone I'm calling here and tell you they come in there and they're doing all this and one mixtape. I'm like, dude, that ain't what we do here. This is what we do. And this is, our daily bread. That's what I call it, our daily bread. These are certain things that we're going to do every day, regardless if it's week 1 or week 17. This is what we're doing. Now, all that freestyle and one, get off the line like you got on roller skates, all that. No, 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 that ain't what we do. Now, you do that when you're with him, but this is what we do. And it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes because, they've been doing it all summer. So when they get there, like, hey, man, go get him. Hey, man, who taught you that release? We don't work on that. So it's probably more widespread with skilled kids than you would ever imagine, because everybody's got cones, everybody's got grass, and everybody can tell you how to get open like, Stephon Diggs.
yeah. I guess it's not a. I played offensive line. It's so different because if you're really working on the summer, how many guys are going to go out and get a sled? And how many people really know how to teach offensive line footwork and hand placement and the difference between gap blocking schemes and zone blocking? Like, it's not, I don't feel like it's readily, there's less
Oh,
people willing to go teach
oh yeah.
offensive linemen than wide receivers. Everybody who play wide receiver feels like they can go out there and teach somebody. Because listen, we did your mic'd up, and I heard the and one mixtape criticism of some of these guys all week. Even that's even at an all-star game. I got to ask you because as an offensive lineman, I didn't get invited to participate, obviously, because I won't contribute anything. Maybe I would be the guy on my knee, like throwing the ball back to the quarterback. The 7-on-7 teams have become like super popular, right? Especially with like TikTok and some of these insane catches and one-on-one drills with all these 7-on-7 guys. Has done. I'm trying to find out what the best way to ask this. Have kids been less prepared coming into college because of that? Because they're not working on the right techniques in those 7-on-7 atmospheres?
Right. Nobody's teaching fundamentals. So, one of the biggest habits for us to break from the skilled kid position as far as, receiver, uh, everybody wants the routine catch, everybody wants it to be spectacular, one handed. It's like, dude, no, that ain't what we do. That's not how this works. And then you can go back and you can look at any 7-on-7 highlight tournaments that they have, it's always the one-handed catch. It's always,
Yeah.
the impossible deal, and they make them. But that's not realistic when we're talking about Saturdays. You know, constantly. I don't know how many times you think you're going to be able to catch a slant at full speed with one hand. That's just not what it does. That ain't what it do. So when you're there, the fundamentals are out the window. Now it's just get open, you know, and that's not real football. I like the fact that they're out there and they're actually doing something, they're being active, but it's also one of those things where if you don't get a hold of it, you know, there's kids right now back in Florida that they don't even play high school football. They play 7 on
Yeah.
7.
Yeah. A
Young
lot of
kids,
kids in
they
it.
play 7
A,
on
a
7.
lot of the kids in Atlanta, dude. There's a lot of Atlanta 7-on-7 teams too.
And that makes no sense to me. Um, you know, I play at Mulberry Senior High School, and I've done nothing all summer with Mulberry Senior High School. That makes
Yeah.
no sense to me. I got 7 on 7 practice. Well, what time is the high school practice? I don't know. You don't know. Like, and then there's kids, like I said, ninth and 10th grade that's not even playing high school. They're playing 7 on 7, and they'll make their decision on where they're going into their junior year. And I'm just like, that's asinine. But, in the state of
Mm.
Florida, they just okayed NIL for high school kids as well. We were already off the chain down there, but it's really about to get off the chain down there.
I watched some of it just because it's hard to avoid it now. There's 7-on-7 stuff everywhere. It just watching some of the one-on-ones and like some of the releases these guys use to get open and stuff like that. It was like, man, if you did that in a game against like a physical corner, you're getting planted.
Bro, that, and then what you think that defensive line doing? They
Oh
watching
yeah.
you? No, they're not watching you. They're going to get the quarterback with the ball.
And
This
go
thing is
ahead
time. We got to
and
freaking go.
or overextending themselves over the
Oh,
middle.
okay,
That
that
could
works.
you imagine Aubrey Miller playing middle linebacker and a wide receiver trying to overextend himself for a one-handed catch?
Bro, that now I would tell you the O line thing that you said. Now, if someone that was really good open up, that would be a huge market because there's not a lot of guys that teach that. And then uh, we got a guy that wants to come on and talk about it. He worked with the at the Legacy Bowl, Sack Sensei. I've been talking to him, but he's a D line guy. So D line receivers, DBs, quarterbacks. You can go to your local park and find trainers for that. Now, I don't know what the credentials would be, but you can find trainers for that a dime a dozen. But to
Yeah.
teach pass set, to teach to teach that, there's not a lot of guys that can actually teach that.
No. I don't know if he does it. I mean, like, because I don't know if Mr. Campbell's still in here, but like a guy like a Willie Anderson or someone teaching offensive line
Oh,
stuff, or like I and offensive line is also just harder. Like less people play it. Like we've talked about this with JB and Blade and all them, but we talked about, I guess, offensive line coming up wasn't a popularized position. Like usually, especially in, I want to get out of the Floridas and the Georgias, like a smaller state, the worst talent plays offensive line in youth for the most part. Like that's just
oh,
where you put the kids that
that's
aren't
not
good enough.
fast.
Yeah, that's not fast. Um, but at the same time, like there's some kids who have played offensive line their whole life, and when they get to high school, they're ready, man.
Yeah,
But it's a weird position to teach, especially because it's so different depending on the scheme that you run.
and there's not a lot of big kids that are actually coming out to practice in 93-degree heat
Man, you
at the
telling
little
me,
league, junior high level.
man,
So,
like because you know how it is, coach, with like conditioning. So when I was in high school, we had a new coach come in. So my freshman year of high school, we had a brand new coach that we hired from Mississippi. He's in the Mississippi High School Hall of Fame. His name's Jack French. My school, the last time I think we had a winning record was when my uncle was in high school back in like the late 80s. We had a losing record all the way up until Like I was there. So my freshman class was the first class to go to the playoffs since the 80s. Bro, he came in and his summer conditioning, man, you know how brutal it is in the South, especially in Mobile in freaking July. We had 2-a-days. So in the mornings we would scrimmage, we would come back and practice in the afternoons and do all the, positional drills, scrimmage again. But that's when we also did conditioning. Dude, we had this practice field. It was we had the whole like 120 yards, and we would start on the track that went around, and we'd start with the 2-mile run. And every week we got closer to the season, it would go from like 2 miles to 1 mile to like 400s to like 250s. Then we would start 120s, 110s, 100s, and work our way down to 50-yard sprints. Dude, and he had this book, man. I will never forget the first day of my freshman year. Right, he came out there in that book, and he had all the times from every single sprint that they ran for like the last 20 years, where he was the head coach. And if we didn't beat no, dude, if we didn't beat the time that the previous team set on, so he had sprint 1 through like 20. Let's say they took 20 tries. On sprint 6, if we didn't beat their time on sprint 6 from last year, it didn't count.
Fighting history and the clock.
Woo! Bro, I mean, I will never forget that. Bro, I play offensive line. You know how it is. The offensive linemen are always the ones that screw it up because we're not like the wide receivers can just jog. We got to sprint like we're on fire, bro. And I will never forget. We ran like 32 sprints that first summer. That first time we did, like, I think it was 100s or 110s. Bro, I remember laying in the back of the end zone with the other offensive linemen, and we were like, maybe if we just all quit and they don't have an offensive line. Like,
I was just about to say there's a lot of questions going on there, bro.
Brad, it questioned my existence. But like, and we had that senior offensive lineman. He was like, man, maybe if the whole offensive line unit quits, they'll make us stop doing this.
There's a
Oh,
lot of
man.
questioning going on. Ain't no doubt about it. But
Man,
it's unique, man. And things have changed since you were in high school, bro.
Man,
Like,
oh yeah, like I think it was like 2 or 3 years after my senior year, they like banned 2-a-days down here.
it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, you can't do 2-a-days no more. Which, I mean, because during the summer, like the early summer, we used to have like 2-a-day workouts where we had weightlifting in the morning and then we had conditioning in the afternoon. And I was like, why can't we do the conditioning in the morning, bro? It's so nice out here. It's like 85. We're gonna wait till it's 150 out here to run these sprints.
That's exactly why. But the
Helmets
707, the 707 with high school is great. Down in where I'm from, Hillsboro and Polk, they do a 707 like summer deal where it travels from high school to high school.
Yeah.
I think that's really a good thing, but the problem that they're running into is a lot of their kids aren't playing. That's what I'm saying about 707. A lot of their kids aren't playing with them, and it just becomes a real headache because Coach Fred has been here all summer, put the work in, and then Blue shows up week before the season. What we doing? That kind of thing. So it puts coaches in a bind. But that NIL thing down there is really real, man. Like, and then they have a rule, and I know we're closing up, but then there's a rule down where I'm from. Like, I can start at Bluebloods High School and play week 1, week 2, week 3, and decide that, man, we ain't going nowhere. I'm going across town to the contender and be eligible to play week 5.
Yeah.
I just played week 3 with you guys, and I can go over there. And then if I want to go back to the other school because that's where my guys at, we hoop together, I can go back.
Yep. There was a kid who I'm a big fan of his game. He's committed to Notre Dame right now. His name's Deuce Knight. He was the quarterback down at George County in Lucedale.
Okay.
He transferred up to one of the private schools up in Tennessee. They played on like ESPN in like week 2 or 3. I don't remember the name of the school. I'm blanking on it right now. It's some academy. Gosh, they just had like a 5-star kid come out of there. But anyway, Lipscomb Academy is the school up there. Transferred up to Lipscomb, got homesick, wasn't playing well about week 3 or 4, transferred back to George County like mid-season.
It was ready to go.
Yeah, and was ready to go. Just right back into the swing of things. Like, could you like? Isn't that insane? Like, that is just that makes no sense to me. Especially because his situation was it wasn't as bad because if you go to Lipscomb Academy isn't competing with George County for the state. Those are two
Yeah,
different
it's over
states.
there. Yeah.
But what would keep like in Mobile the 7A, I don't remember what region we are now because they just did all the regions, but you got like Baker, Murphy, Theodore, Bryant, MGM, all these really competitive schools now. What keeps a elite quarterback? Let's say if I'm an elite quarterback coach, I can go from Baker to MGM mid-season because MGM's got a better chance to get into the playoffs.
I mean, the options are endless. Because I mean, if I'd had that option, I mean, I would have went to Plant City High School, played football with Russell Evans, and then I would have came back to Mulberry and played basketball with my guys because we were state contenders in basketball. So to even have that thought in my head, it just doesn't make sense because it's like and it goes back to like the portal. I've been with y'all the whole time. And now I'm going across town to play with these guys, and I'll see y'all in a couple months, and then we gonna make this run in basketball. Like I don't know, man. It is what it is.
That's player movement like personified right there. I
That's
mean,
NFL.
yeah, I mean, because that's the next step is like with all this NIL and transfer portal. And then we'll get out of here, man. Because right now we're just going. But I think the next step is wondering are contracts going to be a part of college NIL now, where if Alcorn State wants to pay this recruit to come to Alcorn and you sign that deal, are you locked in for 2 years? Are you locked in
But
for
they
3
can't.
years, 4 years?
I don't. They can't do that because I think that went back to the Northwestern deal when they first started this with the union and the
Yeah.
antitrust laws and all that crap like that. But you know, they've got to figure out a way, as my guy Coach JB would say, they got to figure out a way. They're never going to get all the toothpaste back in the tube, but they got to figure out how to get some of the toothpaste back in the tube because it's only going to get uh, worse unless you're just going to say, you know what, in 5 years we're doing away with the NCAA, and then what? Because at the end of the day, I mean, what are you going to be left with? If you're not
It's
Power Five, everybody else is going to be like junior college.
the only reason I say that is because at the end of the day, these schools are about making money, especially the athletic departments. I don't think it's going to go over well when you tell Alabama that they can go offer this 5-star $800,000 to come here, but then he's not locked in to stay, and we're out of $800,000.
As Billy Napier, I think that lawsuit right there
That's
is
a whole
going
nother thing.
to. I think that's going to have a whole. I'm talking about momentum switch in all this because if that kid, if it doesn't even go in front of a judge and they settle, that kid's gone. So guess what's going to happen now? So I think that case in itself is going to be huge in the NIL game going forward and what happens because you're talking about now a coach and a collective. You saw how quick the University of Florida came out and said, "Hey, man, it ain't got nothing to do with us.
Yep.
You
It's
know,
all it's
let's
all on those two boosters and Napier.
let's write this statement and put this out there. It has nothing to do with us." So now coaches are going to be looking at this, and if Napier's got to come off half, other coaches are going to be starting now. They're going to start telling those collectives, "Hey, man, now you keep that over there. That's a binding agreement between y'all that has nothing to do with us now." So the guys that are running those collectives, those guys that's paid all that money at Texas A&M, and now you're saying you want us to help, but you're not going to help us. Oh, well, we'll just keep our money.
Yep.
So now it's going to be a catch-22. So I think this case is going to be really, really big going forward in the NIL game, to be honest. 13 million is a lot for a kid to come play uh, football. I
No,
mean,
that's like the Nico kid at Tennessee. Like they got in trouble for the private jet situation That they, I mean, come on, we're buying kids private jets now, but I think the so everyone always asks about the FCS in this new this new, I guess, this new landscape. The two things I'm looking for that actually I think will benefit FCS schools, which sounds weird because we always talk about the FCS schools being kind of left out. The two things that can help them though is if the if the Power Four, the Autonomous Four, whatever you want to call them, limit scholarships, where they bring that scholarship limit down, which they want to do, and bring it closer to around 70 to 60. That's less spots, is going to force some of those kids to look at the G5 and FCS. And then also, two, if the NCAA eliminates walk-on status for those autonomous four programs, that changes
Oh,
the game in terms of recruiting.
oh yeah, because a lot of those kids, I don't think a lot of people, the common fan knows, there's a lot of walk-ons that were scholarship guys, so to speak, that are now getting NIL money, and now that allows us
Yep.
to sign more good guys, so to speak.
Well, look at the Cormani McLean kid, a former 5-star, is a walk-on at Florida.
Yeah, but he got the bag from Miami.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
Cash money. But like you said, that's a whole other conversation, man. Ain't no doubt.
And Mr. Cable is right now because no school's directly paying it, but now they're
No,
bringing
collectives.
yeah, but now they're bringing the collectives into the universities, which is going to change.
Which I think is going
Ooh.
to change with the lawsuit, because what school is going to allow you to come in and put us in a situation where we have to pay a kid that's never stepped foot on this campus $13 million?
Hmm. What about the
I ain't
coach?
got it.
Was it the Boise State? I want to say it was the Boise State coach, and I'll correct me if I'm wrong, but he was like, "We don't do NIL," and
I'm
I was
calling
like,
BS on that one.
"Well, no, he really meant it."
No, he
He's
don't. But
yeah.
somebody out there is.
I mean, there's no way nowadays to recruit without that, right?
No way.
Okay, but like, let's get
Not
out
at
the
that level.
FBS. At the
Not at that level.
G5/autonomous 4 level, there's no way to recruit without NIL. And you're
Not if you
seeing
want to be good.
and you're seeing Clemson suffer, and Clemson has NIL, but Clemson not using the portal is just killing that program.
Gabo's a whole other subject matter for me, but
Mm.
I think that I that will change.
Yeah, it's got to. Because you can't compete with the Florida States and these other schools that are bringing, like, Florida State's going out there and getting DJU, and you got Miami going to get Cam Ward, and NC State's loading up in the portal. You got all these programs bringing all this talent, and you're just going to trust your high school recruiting when every year you lose, let's say 40% of your signing class at the end of the day is probably going to end up at another university.
And that's just a mere fact of it. And you say, okay, we're going to win with these freshmen and these sophomores. You're going to take your lumps, but by the time they're juniors and seniors, we'll be good. No, we're not, because guess what happens when they become junior and seniors? Now, somebody's in their DM, somebody's at the crib, whatever. And, well, Coach Sweeney, or was it Coach Sagan that said the guy came in, third string running back, said he needed 100 to stay?
Oh, Mike Loxley at Maryland.
Maryland, yeah, he needed money to stay. He's third string running back. He needs money to stay.
That just is
Not any money. He needed a lot of money.
100K for a third string running back is crazy. Crazy. But man, Coach, let's wrap this one up, man. We appreciate y'all rocking with us almost 2 hours.
The whole time.
Yeah. Man, we will be back. We're going to get this team back up and rolling. Coach is back from his vacation, man. We're back in full swing. So, man, stay tuned. We'll either be back this weekend, early next week. We'll make an announcement on social media. But, man, hit the like button. Comment your SWAC tiers below. Comment your thoughts on the Celebration Bowl movie, man. Just let us know what you guys think. We'll be back with another mailbag next week for sure. Obviously, man, check out the website, si.com/college/FCS, as we've already started our conference previews, individual team previews, and much more content. Positional rankings, FCS All-American, be dropping very, very soon. But for Coach Fred, for myself, for the Blue Bloods FCS Football Central, man, we are out for right now.